Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of Beyond Action. I'm your host, Merlowski, and in this podcast, we will be diving into my various opinions, theories, and just general ideas on the ever changing entertainment industry. Last week, we looked at Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania before the release of it, so maybe some of my theories were correct. Maybe Ant-Man doesn't die, maybe he does. I'll be posting a movie review on it pretty soon, so can't wait to see that. Today's topic will be time travel. And I'm talking traveling back into the past or traveling way forward into the future. I'm here for it all. And what we are going to be talking about is how the entertainment industry depicts time travel and the issues behind time travel and the non-issues behind time travel. We will be talking about it all today in this episode. So let's get started. As many of you could have already gathered, I am a huge comic book fan and I love everything that has to do with comic books. So it's no surprise that in comic book lore and comic book history, there have been a lot of time traveled stories. They give a lot of superheroes the ability to travel back in time, like either Superman spinning the globe around in the opposite way, and he turns back time somehow with that, but that would actually just kill a lot of people. And then the Flash going back in time by breaking the space-time continuum and barrier by being able to run super fast. I'm here to talk about it all today, and one of the most notable situations where this all happens is the Flashpoint paradox. If you have not heard of the Flashpoint paradox, strap in, I'm going to be explaining it all. If you are new to DC Comics and you do not know who Barry Allen or the Flash is, then I'm going to explain it all in the briefest way that I can. Barry Allen was 10 years old when his mom got murdered by who knows what, but his dad got framed for the killing. And so then Barry basically grew up orphaned without his biological parents, his mom being dead and his dad being in prison. But he knew that his dad was innocent. And all he did was try to prove that his dad was innocent. And it turns out, a few years later, the fact that his arch nemesis, the Reverse Flash, was behind the killing. So, what does this have to do with anything? The Flash gets superpowers by getting a lightning bolt struck on him, which isn't the best way to get superpowers. It's probably a very painful way to get superpowers. But basically, in the TV show The Flash, they try to play it as a particle accelerator goes off, sending like dark matter into everywhere and even the sky, which is where he got his superpowers. In other ways, it's just a science experiment gone wrong where he got hit by a bolt of lightning. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that he has the ability to travel at the speed of light, sometimes speed of sound. It all just depends on which iteration of the Flash we're talking about. But we are talking about the DC animated universe and the Flashpoint paradox in that movie. So, now that you know a bit of the background on the Flash, then let me explain to you a bit. So, now that you know that Barry's mom was killed, if you had the superpower to go back in time and save your mom, would you do it? Like, answer it honestly. Because I think I would. Honestly, I have been very fortunate to live and meet both my parents, meet many of my grandparents, and I cannot imagine not being able to have that. And just knowing that it got taken away from you abruptly and having that opportunity to be able to go back, I think it would haunt me every day of my life if I didn't do it. So I think that Barry is completely in the right for doing what he did. But the thing is, when you go back in time, time starts to mess with them again. So he goes back in time and saves his mom, and then all hell breaks loose, and so everything just changes. The whole timeline is different. As you know from the comics, Bruce Wayne is Batman. But it turns out that in this new reality that has just been created, it turns out that Thomas Wayne, which is Batman's dad, ended up surviving. And so Bruce and Martha, which are his wife and son, ended up dying. So then Thomas decides to go on and become the Batman. But he is no normal Batman. He is not the Batman that you want to mess with. I would much rather have Bruce Wayne as Batman, even though like the hospital bills would be super expensive. This guy, like, he uses actual guns and he doesn't care if you live or die. He will literally just use his ability because he was like scarred that bad. Then you have the World War that is started by Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and everything is just completely different because you don't have the Justice League like you had it there. You're no longer the Flash or a superhero. You don't even have your super speed in this movie. How are you supposed to like save the world if the world is messed up because of you? But he ends up finding this later, and like you just don't have those superpowers. What Barry does is he recreates the circumstances that gave him his superpowers, and then he ends up getting his super speed again. After getting his super speed again, he's able to fix a few things. They go and save Superman, which here he didn't land, or like his parents were different. Something happened. I don't remember exactly very well, but something happened to where Superman wasn't the Superman. Like he wasn't the beacon of hope that he was. He was a like science experiment that humanity kept as a guinea pig to make sure that like he could be like a soldier or something for the US Army. And so Superman didn't have that background that he had that made him the Superman, the person that saves everyone. So in the end of the movie, the Flash needs his speed to get like he's gonna go back in time, but he can't because the Reverse Flash is stopping him from doing so. The Reverse Flash is using up some of the Speed Force, so there's not enough Speed Force, the force that gives the Flash and the Reverse Flash their speed. There's not enough of that for two people, so the Flash is getting beat pretty hard, and then he realizes that he was the one that caused all of this. He thought that it was the fault of his arch nemesis, the Reverse Flash, but that's not true. The person that caused this was him going back in time and saving his mom. But then it turns out that Thomas Wayne was actually listening into the whole conversation and ends up killing the Reverse Flash. Or as we find out in later comics, he didn't actually die, but here he does die. And so then Barry has enough Speed Force to go back and fix the timeline. But it wasn't fully fixed. Like you can only fix something, like if you break something, it never fully healed. If you break a bone, it will never fully heal. It will just heal as best as possible. And that is what happened to the timeline. But how does this exactly happen? Because we know that the butterfly effect exists, and we know that a lot of movies try to express the butterfly effect. But how does Barry? He should be younger than Batman. Like here, I'm taking like the continuity's sake. I'm pretty sure that like Batman would be in his like middle, like early to middle 30s, while Barry is like 27 or something like that. And both their parents died when they were both 10, so it means that Batman's parents died before Barry was like even like pretty much born. And so how did Batman's dad end up surviving the shooting if the timeline should have reset from the point that Barry's mom got like killed? That's something that I don't understand and something that the continuity doesn't make sense. Obviously, I'm no expert and I can't give you all the answers, but I think what is very important is to realize that the fact that comic books don't really care if it makes too much sense or not. They will try to make it make sense, but what they mostly care about is giving a good story. And this is an amazing story. If you haven't watched it, I recommend that you watch it. It is on HBO Max, The Flashpoint Paradox. It's a very good movie. Yes, it's animated. I'm not really into the animated things very much, but this movie was just way too good to pass up. So I would 100% recommend. And I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Superman also would have landed before the Flash's mom died, so it just creates a lot of things where I think that the best way to explain what happened in this situation was the fact that there was a space-time ripple that led to other events breaking down, like obviously Aquaman being in a war against Wonder Woman, Cyborg, like just being like a leader of the UN. I think that was what he was being. Batman dying and his dad taking his place, which Martha Wayne, she became like the Joker or something like that, like a Harley Quinn type of Joker. I'm not exactly sure what exactly happened there, but it was kind of explained. And then Hal Jordan ended up just like committing suicide. Like it was a really weird storyline that didn't make any sense. And like the whole time I was like, fuck, this stuff is good. But then at the end I'm like, but it doesn't make any sense. Like you have a storyline that is really good, but then when you think about it, where does this come from? Where does that come from? It doesn't make any sense how the things lined up perfectly to make this good storyline. And so, if any of you guys have any ideas, please leave a comment down below and express to me what you may understand or what you may take of this situation. But I just take the fact that there was a space-time ripple, and so like all of like reality just like scattered across, and it just became whatever it wanted to be. As I mentioned before, this whole like process of going back in time and like trying to change a fixed point in time. A fixed point in time is something that cannot be changed without severe repercussions. It is explained in some situations, but most of the things that are back in time are severe repercussions. You can't go back in time and save someone from an assassination without there being a can of worms opened, like that you cannot like close again. You cannot go back into the ice age and do something different, because when once humanity finds traces of that, then is when like everything will just become really messed up. But a really good like example of this, and it's why it's called the butterfly effect, is imagine that you have three time travelers going back in time. Okay, they go back in time and they're like, okay, you cannot touch anything, you cannot like even hurt an animal, because if you hurt an animal, that will like mess up the whole ecosystem. So then they come back to the future and everything's a mess. One of them looks under their shoe and they see a butterfly under there. Yes, a butterfly is a very small organism and a very small object, but the idea that something that small can cause something so grand is like mind-boggling to me. Because imagine this, that butterfly was meant to be eaten by a lizard. So then that lizard couldn't eat, and so it either ate a different butterfly or it couldn't find any butterfly for the next few like miles. So it might have died or something like that. And so then that causes the food chain to go down and down and down and down to where everything ends up shaping itself completely different to the way that it was supposed to go, all because of a small little butterfly. In the Flashpoint paradox, it's a bigger thing, it's a bigger situation to where the Flash's mom got killed, so then you don't have the Flash, but it's a very small thing in like the 8 billion people that we have in this planet. Like it's one person. I'm not going against like individual lives, but what I'm saying is that it is one person. How could it affect into a third world war? And it is just the implications that that might have had on someone else. You never really know the truth behind what is going to happen in the long run. And I think that that is very greatly explained by the butterfly effect.